Perfect. Thank you for coming. My name is Patti Carey, and I'm Vice President of Public Relations for Northcott. And this is my second time at QuiltCon. How many of you are first-time QuiltConners? Awesome. How many of you have been to every QuiltCon conference? Anybody? Nobody. Okay. Northcott's booth, if you haven't been by our booth, is number 616. This main aisle right behind us towards the other end. And we've got lots of free stuff and fun stuff in our booth, so if you haven't had a chance to come by, please do. We have a monthly newsletter that is information only, no commitments, and we have a little giveaway if you sign up for that. And if you like Facebook or Instagram, we've got a little goodie for you if you post a picture on Facebook or Instagram. So please come by. And to sign up, contest for an AccuCut, what is it? AccuCut Go machine. So someone that makes the applique, someone will win that. It could be you. So please come and sign up. So our talk today is modern and metallics. And how many of you have used any type of fabric with metallic on it in your quilts? A few of you. Very good. You know, traditionally with modern quilting, we're talking about solids, but let's switch over a little bit and talk about metallics. I know I've been at Northcott forever, 32 years. I started when I was 4. And at that time, you know, the last, I would say 10, 15 years ago, when we were doing metallic fabrics, they looked quite different than the metallic fabrics that we're doing now. They had a spray of metallic on the fabric, and what it did is make the fabric quite stiff, and it actually changed the color of the fabric. So if you had a blue fabric that had a gold metallic spray on it, the fabric looked patchy green in places. Did that make sense? So the metallics that we have now are not as heavy. They are purposely positioned on the fabric to enhance the design of the fabric. And I've got a couple of samples that I'd like to pass out. My able-bodied assistant, Christina, is going to pass these samples around. So the top sample is from Northcott's Artisan Spirit Shimmer line, and that's the one that has some metallic on it. So I want you to take a look at that, but I want you to feel it too and see that it's not stiff at all. The second sample that is in the little packet is Toscana, which is a blender that Northcott has. We say it looks like suede, but it feels like silk. And then the bottom sample is Northcott Solid. This is called Colorworks, and again, feels like silk. Northcott is cottons that feel like silk. So just give those a feel and pass them on to the next person. No, you may not use them in your next quilt. These particular samples, they're for my next quilt. But take a look at those. So, what else do I want to mention? My husband, when I was telling him I was doing this presentation, he said, so how is the metallic fabric made? Well, it's really the same base cloth as our regular fabric, our regular quilting cottons, and the metallic is copper or zinc, and it's got a binder that it's added to, and then it's applied to the fabric. How many of you are familiar with pigment? Pigment is usually white, and it's applied to the surface of your fabric. Have you worked with fabrics that have pigment on them? I know long-arm quilters really hate pigment on your backings because it gets stuck in their machine. So the difference between the fabric dye and pigment is dye soaks into the fabric, whereas the pigment sits on the fabric and it's applied to the surface of the fabric. Metallics are the same way. It's going to sit on the fabric, but it has binders in it, so it's binding to the fabric. So I asked the mill, how washable are these fabrics? Because that's always the big question. And the answer is, they are as washable as your regular quilting cottons. So nothing to be concerned about there. Now, with our regular quilts, I tend not to wash my fabrics before I make my quilts. Are there anybody else who does not wash their fabrics before? So with me, it's quite self-explanatory. All the fabrics I'm putting into my quilt are Northcott. They're all going to shrink at the same rate. So if you put all Northcott fabrics in your quilt, you don't need to pre-wash yours either. Pretty straightforward there. And the fabrics will all shrink at the same rate. So washing the quilts. Many of us would not think about putting our quilts in the washing machine on that rigorous cycle and then throwing it in the dryer on a pretty high heat. That's just not what I'm going to do with my quilts. I've spent a lot of time on them. I'm going to wash them gently. I might put them in the machine very carefully, spacing them and spin the water out on a gentle cycle, and then I'm going to lay the quilt out to dry. And if you do that with your metallic fabrics, they will last just as long, that metallic will last just as long as the regular fabrics in your quilt. So no issues there with the washing. I should also mention, and I think Northcott has this information on our website, wash in nothing warmer than a lukewarm water, please. Any fabric will bleed if it's washed in hot water. And it'll continue to bleed until there's nothing left, until you have a white quilt, or pretty close to white quilt. And if you do want to put it in the dryer, just tumble dry low, just to kind of get a few of the wrinkles out, but I tend to lay mine flat to dry. I should also mention, and this is true with regular quilting cottons, not just the metallic, but please do not dry clean. Has anybody had an experience dry cleaning their quilts? Has anybody dry cleaned ever? Okay. I'll tell you with the metallic fabrics, if you dry clean them, it actually oxidizes the metal and turns it a shade of green that may not be quite so appealing on your quilt. Along the same lines, if you use something like OxyClean on your fabric, it does the same thing. So please don't use OxyClean on your metallic fabrics because it will oxidize the surface of the metallic. Yes? Do we have instructions for washing the fabrics on our website? I believe we do. Yes, Christina says we do. And is that in the resources section on Northcott's website? Northcott.com, by the way, is Northcott's website. The mill also recommends for metallic fabrics that you press them from the reverse or the back side if you can. But very often once you've pieced that block, it's kind of hard sometimes to press from the wrong side all the time. I have never had a bad experience pressing from the right side. All right, so when I'm talking about metallic fabrics, the ones I'm referencing are the ones that Northcott carries, because that's my point of reference, and it is our ongoing line that's been available for, I'm thinking about 5 years now. It's so long I've lost track. It's called Artisan Spirit Shimmer. Are any of you familiar with the shimmer fabric? Have you used them in your quilts? I know it's not a typical fabric that most modern quilters would think of, but I'm going to give you some reasons why you might want to use it. So the shimmer fabric is, and Christina, if you can hold up that sample, it is essentially a texture with the metallic printed on it. So you're getting some light, some dark within each piece of fabric. And you can see all of these fabrics, they're gradated from, this is the lightest sample, then second lightest, and that's just how we've designed the Artisan Spirit Shimmer. And also put in an ombre fabric that has several of the prints all combined together. So it's really fun to work with. This is the main shade card that shows the colors that the collection comes in. So why do we want to use metallic fabrics? Well, when I was trying to determine this for our talk today, I went to several, and what she said was non-directional textures, using those in our quilts instead of solids, they kind of add more interest to the quilt. They are one step past a solid, using these non-directional or texture prints. If they contain more than one color in them, it makes it a lot easier to coordinate with other fabrics. So, you know, you're looking for that perfect color of solid to match or coordinate with something, and you're having a really hard time. But when you have something that's a texture, it almost bridges, so it helps you get something that's close enough that it matches. So that's the beauty of using the textures. I also watched with interest. Is there anybody who's not a member of the Modern Quilt Guild that's here? Okay, a few of you. All right. I joined last year, and I love it. And my Quilt Guild is actually joining. Yay! One of the advantages of being a member is that you have all of these wonderful resources at your hands, such as the webinars that are available. And I watched last month's webinar that was by Malka Dabrowski. Anybody else watch Malka's webinar? Her webinar was on designing with patterned fabrics. And so that gave me some ideas as well. She talks about using printed fabrics in modern quilts and how they add movement to our quilts. And she said, she defines spaces by putting similar colors in their own area of the quilt. So she'll have a whole variety of blues in one section, a whole variety of yellows in another section. She's got some great visuals in her webinar. And these webinars are available once they are live, then they're posted on the website and you can access them. So let's take a look at a couple of quilts. The first one here is my Starshine Beauty quilt, and this is made just with the shimmer. So it's pretty heavily into the shimmer. You might not think of this as a modern quilt, maybe more a contemporary quilt, but what I did to take it from, and New York Beauty is a block that's as old as the hills. I tried to find out how old this block is, but I'm thinking at least 150 years old. So there's nothing really modern about it. However, I modernized it by removing the background pieces on the edge blocks. But it's pretty heavily into the shimmer. I've used two different color palettes in this quilt, the blacks and grays and also the browns palette, which range from cream to brown. And group the colors kind of together in it, so that's that quilt. So it gives me the ability to create a more complex surface because there's more going on with all of those prints that are mixed in. The next quilt that we've got is called Going in Circles. And this is one that I did for Quilter's newsletter, Quilts with a Twist, in 2014. So I took my basic circle shape, large and small, but then on the sashing pieces, those circles became ovals, so it kind of adds a little bit of interest there. But again, I'm using, in this one, 3 different color palettes from the shimmer. The black and gray, the rose colored, and some of the teal colored as well. So you've got some color grouping in there. Alrighty, and then we've got the next sample here, and this one is a free download that's in the resources section on Northcott's website, When we first introduced the Shimmer line, we had charm squares, 5-inch squares, of all of the original colors. And I was challenged to create a quilt using all 63 of the original colors. So no small task. I've combined it with the Colorworks, our solid cotton, and just to show you the gradation of color. But this is what Malka talks about in her webinar, where you've got color blocking. So each column is one color, but I've got it arranged from light to dark. So you've got a cohesiveness there. And let me see what else. So she talks about using similar prints and a range of colors, and that's kind of what you can see with that one. The Shimmer are all very similar, fairly small scale. So what you're seeing, even though you're using that print with the metallic, you've got a similar scale, so you're seeing the color come through in each of the columns. Also, not this one yet. Sorry, Christina. Eye candy. I need to talk for a minute before. We did not do a run through with this. I had dinner last night with a couple of my friends from my Modern Quilt Guild, and they were telling me about a lecture that they went to yesterday afternoon by Christopher Thompson. A few other people went to that one. And I understand in his lecture, he referenced metallic fabrics as well, and mentioned that they are very trendy right now. So they just add that extra, in addition to the texture that they're adding, or the interest that they're adding, they've got that extra little bit that catches your eye. So, and as I'm walking around, there are a few other vendors that I see that also have metallic fabrics in their booth. I noticed them in V & Company's Ombre Confetti with metallic that is being done by another fabric company that I'm not allowed to name. How it washes. She's washed her quilt. That's in the booth. Do not tell anybody at Northcott that I sent you to that booth. Just to see how it washes, because the quilts will wash. I actually make my dress. My dress is made out of Shimmer. And I have washed, of course I wash the fabric before I make the dress. Because if I don't, the standard shrinkage for quilting cottons is about 4 to 5%. When I write patterns, as I do on one of Northcott's pattern designers as well, my patterns are available through Quilt Woman, I usually calculate 8% shrinkage, because depending on how somebody washes it, I can't guarantee how somebody might wash that fabric. So I will include 8% shrinkage just in case somebody puts it in really warm water, hot, and puts it in the dryer on bake for about an hour and a half, and it really does shrink a lot. So, but the standard shrinkage is about 4 to 5%. Alrighty. And so I want to show you the ombre header now. So, this is the first QuiltCon where we've actually had some metallic samples in our booth, and I cannot tell you how much interest there has been in these in our booth. It is probably the most popular fabric line out of the 4 lines that we are talking about in our booth. Not only from the shade card, but also from this sample here. So I reference the ombre effect, this particular one. So you're looking at selvage to selvage. So the original ombre with the shimmer goes dark to light at the fold and then dark again. This one here was from Flight of Fancy, and it started light on one selvage and dark on the opposite selvage. And then this one is from, which collection is this one from, Christina? This one's Flight of Fancy as well? Flight of Fancy too, okay. Shimmer Echoes, also light on one selvage to dark on the other selvage. And it's the perfect with the fabric to make a dress. It's the perfect to be the length of a dress. So my selvage is right here. That's as far as you're seeing. So the other selvage would be up at the top. But super simple dress, just a straight shift dress, and really easy. So of course I'm going to pre-wash it before I make it, or else I think I've gained weight between when I cut it out and when I actually put it on, if I wash it after. So now we can show some other quilts. So this one uses 2 different color palettes from the original Shimmer. We've got the earth colorway, which is the browns, all the lights and darks of browns, and we've got the pink colorway, which is hibiscus. Hibiscus is the pink colorway. And I love how this is adding some interest to that quilt. And you know, in the right light, the little bit of metallic just catches the light a bit and adds that sparkle to it. And this pattern is by Elise's Back Porch. I would say this is modern because it does not have any borders on it. So it's just straight blocks. The next one that we have is one that was originally in Quilting Quickly in 2014, and I have seen it reproduced in other subsequent issues of, trying to keep the white off the ground. Yeah, so we'll hold it sideways. Can we hold it sideways? So again, it gives a very similar effect to the lattice one, which was Through the Lattice. I've used all the colors of the Shimmer in here, but I've used a lot of my white and black to coordinate with them. But I've kept them going in columns so that you're getting, they would be columns if we didn't hold it sideways. They're rows right now, light to dark. And so that's creating that interest in the quilt. You know, as quilters, we're so drawn to color. But really, what's doing the work in our quilts is the value, the contrast of value. And it took me 10 years as a quilter before I realized it's the value that's doing the work. So when we do these collections, we build the value right into the collection so you'll have a successful quilt. So light on this side to dark on the other side, so this would be the top and that's the bottom on this particular quilt. But old-fashioned or a remake of the traditional Jacob's ladder. And again, no borders, so I'm thinking modern. The next one that we've got, a couple different samples here. This is just one block from this quilt, and it's a pattern called Brush Strokes by Ladybug Designs. And Sarah Lister, who designed this, a mixture of fabrics in here, but a couple pieces of, 3 pieces of the Shimmer, a little bit of another texture, and that color works as the background on this one. And a different take on it is this one here. I'm not quite sure where the sleeve is. Doesn't matter. I think it goes any which way. Oh, we just keep rotating. Okay, black background. So that's your ColorWorks black. If you are coming by the booth and want to sign up for the newsletter, you're going to get a piece of the ultra black as your back border. So in this one, a few colors of the orange and red palette of the Shimmer, combined with a few other textures from Northcott's various lines. And kind of a fun modern quilt there. So this pattern is available. If you go to Northcott's website, northcott.com, you can find a link to all of these patterns. And this one here is brand spanking new. This one is designed by Elaine Theriot, and it was featured in the October 2017 issue of McCall's Quilting. You may have seen it. It's called Up. And when Elaine did this one, she combined the various colors of Shimmer with the, I think this is Toscana as the background, so black texture. Work equally well with black solid. But very modern quilt. Elaine's really a modern quilter and does a great job with that. And last but not least, and I see some of you have the Modern Quilt Guild tote bags, the peachy colored bag that you got when you came in. And in those bags, you would have received 5 squares of the turquoise color, peacock colorway, or lagoon colorway. 5 charm squares, and with those charm squares on the back of the band is a link that takes you to the pattern to make this table topper with those 5 squares, putting whatever background you choose with them. So that's an idea that you can use with that. At the show here, the Shimmer fabrics are available at Pineapple Fabrics. They're booth 511, and they are right behind Northcott's booth. So we are booth 660. Do you have any questions at all about the metallics and using metallics in your quilts? No? If you want to come up and talk to me about it or go to the Northcott booth, I will be there. But I thank you very much for coming and listening to our presentation. Have a great afternoon.